There's a frog in the Amazon small enough to sit on a coin. Bright gold, completely calm. It doesn't bite, it has no fangs. It never has to defend itself, because one of these frogs carries enough poison on its skin to kill 10 grown men, and all it takes is a single touch. And here's the thing, that frog isn't the most dangerous animal on this list. It's not even close. The Amazon is the most crowded chemical battlefield on Earth, and almost everything down there is armed. Fangs, stingers, skin, even electricity. Some of these animals can kill you in minutes. A few can do it before you even feel the pain. Today we're counting down the most venomous and deadly animals in the Amazon. And the deeper we go, the worse it gets. Before we head in, I want to know where you're watching from. Drop your city and the exact time on your clock right now in the comments. Common lancehead, of all the things people are afraid of in the Amazon, the jaguars, the giant snakes, the things with teeth the size of a finger. The animal that actually kills the most people is one most of them have never even heard of. It's about the length of your arm. It has no rattle, no hood, nothing that makes a sound. And by the time anyone sees it, they've usually already stepped on it. This is the common lancehead, the Bothrops atrox, known across the north of Brazil as the Jararaca do Norte. And it is, by a wide margin, the deadliest animal in this entire video. Not because its venom is the strongest, it isn't, not even close, but because of one simple ugly statistic. It bites more people than anything else in the rainforest. In the Amazon basin, this single species is behind something like 8 out of every 10 venomous snake bites. Thousands of cases a year. If a person gets bitten by a snake anywhere in this part of the world, the smart bet, before you know anything else, is that it was this one. So why this snake, out of the hundreds of species down there? The answer is almost disappointingly boring. It's not that the jararaca is fast or aggressive or that it hunts people. It's that it refuses to leave. Most dangerous animals keep their distance from humans. They hear you coming and they're gone. The jararaca does the opposite. It stays. It lives in the deep forest, sure, but it's just as happy in a banana plantation, along a riverbank, at the edge of a dirt road, in the tall grass behind somebody's house. Where humans clear land, rodents move in, and where rodents go, the jararaca follows. It has basically decided that the places people live are excellent real estate. And then there's the camouflage, which is where it earns its reputation. A jararaca lying still on the forest floor doesn't look like a snake. It looks like the floor, browns and grays and a pattern that breaks up its outline against dead leaves, so completely that people walk right up to it and never register that anything is there. It doesn't flee and it doesn't warn you. It just waits and trusts that you won't see it, which, most of the time, you don't. The bite usually happens to a foot or a lower leg. From a snake the person never knew was there until the pain arrived. And don't mistake, it waits for its slow. The jararaca is a pit viper, and that name is literal. Tucked into each side of its face, between the eye and the nostril, is a small pit. A heat-sensing organ so precise that the snake can build a rough thermal picture of a warm body moving nearby in total darkness. It doesn't need to see a rat. It can feel the rat's body heat against the cool of the night air, lined up and ranged like a target. That's how a coiled jararaca lands a strike on something it never visually saw coming, and it's why the dark is no protection at all. The strike itself is one of those things the eye can barely register, a blur, a hit, and the snake is back in its coil before the brain has caught up. Hold on to that heat-sensing trick, by the way, because later in this list there's a viper that does the very same thing, except it's the size of a grown man. Now, here's where it stops being a story about a hidden snake and starts being something worse. Because the venom of the jararaca does not work the way most people picture snake venom working. There's no clean little puncture and a slow drift into sleep. This venom is built to take an animal apart. It's loaded with enzymes that attack proteins directly. It goes after the tissue itself, the muscle, the walls of the blood vessels. Around the bite, the flesh begins to swell and darken, and in serious cases, to die. The same chemistry that breaks down a mouse from the inside so the snake can digest it doesn't know the difference between a mouse and a human leg, and it doesn't stay local. The venom interferes with the body's ability to clot blood. It picks the whole system apart, thread by thread. In the worst untreated cases, a person can start bleeding from places that have nothing to do with the bite. The gums, the nose, old wounds reopening. This is why, long before modern anti-venom, a serious jararaca bite so often cost people fingers, toes, whole limbs. The damage outran anything anyone could do about it. Here's the part that surprises even people who study snakes. The jararaca doesn't carry the same venom its entire life. A young jararaca, hunting frogs and small lizards, runs a venom that leans more toward shutting down the nervous system. Fast, paralyzing, good for catching cold-blooded prey that needs to be stopped before it hops away. As the snake grows and switches to a diet of bigger, warm-blooded animals like rats, the recipe quietly changes. The venom shifts toward that tissue-destroying, blood-thinning blend that does so much damage to a mammal. It's the same animal, but it's effectively re-engineering its own weapon as its life changes. The snake that bit you as a juvenile and the one that bit you as an adult are not really fighting with the same thing. And now the turn. Because this is where the jararaca's story bends in a direction nobody would expect. That venom, the one that dissolves tissue and drops blood pressure and has cost so many people so much, became the foundation for one of the most successful medicines ever made. Researchers studying how the venom causes blood pressure to crash traced it down to a specific molecule. And that molecule became the blueprint for captopril, a drug that millions of people around the world now take, every single day, to control high blood pressure. The exact mechanism that makes this snake so dangerous in the forest is, in a refined and controlled form, sitting in medicine cabinets on every continent. The deadliest snake in the Amazon is also, quietly, one of the most useful animals medicine has ever found. 8 out of 10 bites. Thousands a year. A snake most people couldn't pick out of a pile of leaves if their life depended on it. Which, out there, it sometimes does. True coral snake. The jararaca kills by overwhelming the body. Too much damage, too fast, in too many places at once. The next snake on this list does almost the opposite. It barely damages anything at all, and that's exactly what makes it terrifying. Meet the true coral snake. In the Amazon, mostly the Macrurus lemniscatus and its relatives. If the jararaca is built to look like nothing, the coral snake is built to be seen. Red, black, and white bands, ringed around the body like a warning label that never stops repeating itself. In the language of the natural world, this is about as loud as a color scheme gets. Don't. And it works. Most animals that could eat a coral snake have learned over millions of years to leave anything wearing those colors completely alone, which is a little ironic, because the coral snake spends most of its life where nobody can see it anyway. It's a shy, secretive animal that spends its days buried in soil, tucked under rotting logs, threaded through the leaf litter. It's not out cruising for trouble. A lot of people who live their whole lives in the Amazon have never seen one above ground. And when it is encountered, it doesn't strike the way a viper does. No long, dramatic lunge. Its fangs are short and fixed in place at the front of the mouth, and they don't fold or extend. To get its venom into something, the coral snake has to bite down and basically hold on, working its jaws, chewing the venom in. It's an awkward, almost clumsy delivery for one of the most dangerous mouths in the Americas. Because here's the thing about that venom. Where the jararaca's is a sledgehammer, the coral snake's is a scalpel, and a quiet one. It's a nearly pure neurotoxin, and it doesn't bother attacking tissue or blood. It goes straight for the wiring. Specifically, it blocks the signal between the nerves and the muscles. Normally, your brain sends a constant stream of instructions to your body. Breathe, move, hold your eyes open, and those instructions land on the muscles through a chemical handoff. The coral snake's venom jams that handoff. The messages leave the brain and simply never arrive. Sit with what that actually means. The muscles don't get destroyed. There's often very little swelling, sometimes barely any pain at the bite at all, which is part of why these bites can be underestimated in the first hours. Instead, the body just begins to switch off, one system at a time, while the person stays fully awake inside it. Eyelids get heavy, speech goes slack, and eventually, the venom reaches the one muscle that matters more than any other. The diaphragm, the sheet of muscle that drives every breath you take. When that stops responding, breathing stops. Untreated, a severe bite can kill within hours, not from damage, but from a body that has gone quiet while its owner is still in there. And the natural world being what it is, the coral snake's brilliant warning label has been forged. There are a whole range of harmless and mildly venomous snakes across the Amazon, the false corals, that have evolved to copy those exact red, black, and white bands. They're running a bluff. Look dangerous, get left alone, never have to back it up. The problem is that the bluff is good. Some of the copies are close enough that even experienced people can't reliably tell the difference at a glance. There are old rhymes people use to tell the deadly ones from the fakes by the order of the bands, and in this part of the world those rhymes simply don't hold. Too many species, too much variation. Picking up a banded snake to check is a guess with one very bad outcome. Green vine snake, the jararaca hides, and the coral snake advertises, but at least everyone agrees those two are dangerous. The next one spent decades in the wrong column entirely. This is the green vine snake of the Amazon, the Philodrius viridissima, and for a long time the official line on this snake was, more or less, harmless. Pretty, fast, eats birds and lizards, nothing to worry about. People handled them freely. The reason for the relaxed attitude comes down to plumbing. Vipers like the jararaca have long, hinged fangs right at the front of the mouth, purpose-built syringes. The vine snake's fangs are at the back of the mouth, and they're grooved rather than hollow. On paper, that sounds like a downgrade, and for a long time it got this snake filed away as not the dangerous kind. First, the animal itself, because it's a small marvel of disappearing. It's a brilliant, slender green, the exact green of new leaves and vines, and it lives up in the tangle of the canopy, draped across branches and creepers. Against that background, it's almost impossible to pick out. It moves through the high branches with a kind of liquid speed, and it can strike at a bird or a lizard mid-branch without losing its grip, anchoring its body and snapping forward like a thrown rope. A predator that has basically become indistinguishable from the plants it hunts in. And about those back fangs that got it labeled harmless, it turns out the label was wrong. To use them, the vine snake can't just tag and release the way a viper does. It has to get a real grip and chew, working those grooved rear teeth into the wound so the venom can run down the groove and into the flesh. It's not efficient. But when it does manage a solid, prolonged bite, the results have genuinely surprised the doctors who treat them. The venom carries real tissue-destroying activity, closer to what you'd expect from a young jararaca than from a snake people once handled without a second thought. Serious swelling, deep bruising, that spreading purple of blood pooling under the skin, real, lasting pain in the bitten limb. The cases piled up to the point that hospitals across the Amazon had to do something uncomfortable: rewrite their own rules. Bleeding and tissue damage that the textbooks said belonged only to the vipers were turning up in people bitten by a snake the textbooks called harmless. The not dangerous snake had to be quietly reclassified, one emergency room visit at a time. It's a good reminder of something this whole list keeps circling back to. In the Amazon, the danger isn't always wearing a warning label. Sometimes it's the animal everyone already decided was safe. Bushmaster 3.5 meters. That's the number to hold in your head because it's hard to picture until you stand next to it. The largest venomous snake in all of the Americas, and the longest viper anywhere on Earth, lives in the Amazon, and almost nobody ever sees it. Remember that heat-sensing trick from the jararaca? The little pits on the face that red body warmth in the dark. This is the snake I told you to wait for. The bushmaster, the Lachesis muta, known in Brazil as the Surucucu pico de jaca. It runs the same thermal targeting system as its smaller cousin, except scaled up to a body that can stretch longer than a person is tall. Picture the jararaca's quiet, patient lethality. Then keep adding length until it's something out of a story people tell to keep kids away from the deep forest. And the deep forest is exactly where it stays. The bushmaster is not a snake of backyards and plantations. It wants the oldest, darkest, least disturbed parts of the primary rainforest, far from roads and people. And that preference is a big part of why so few human beings ever cross paths with one. It's so sensitive to disturbance that as the forest gets cut and broken up, the bushmaster simply vanishes from those areas. It doesn't adapt to us the way the jararaca does. It withdraws. So the largest viper on the planet has become a kind of ghost, a legend among the people who live near the forest. Talked about far more often than it's actually seen. When it does hunt, the strategy is patience taken to an almost unreasonable extreme. A bushmaster can find a spot along a game trail, a path where small mammals tend to travel, and simply stop. Coiled, motionless, blended into the dead leaves, it can hold that position for days. Some observations suggest weeks. It isn't waiting in the way a person waits, restless and bored. It's running on almost nothing, costing itself almost no energy, letting those facial heat pits keep watch while the rest of it does nothing at all, until the warmth of a passing rodent finally lines up in range. Here's a detail from the field that gives the whole thing an eerie edge. Researchers tracking these snakes with radio tags have noticed that the bushmaster seems to favor hunting during heavy tropical storms, and it makes a grim kind of sense. When the rain is hammering the canopy and the whole forest floor is a wall of noise, a small animal can't hear the tiny sounds that would normally betray a predator. The storm is cover. The snake uses the loudest moments in the forest to make its quietest move. Now, the venom. And this is where the bushmaster's reputation needs a small, honest correction. Drop for drop, its venom is not the most potent on this list. Not close to the frog we're about to meet, not even the most toxic among the snakes. What makes the bushmaster so feared is volume and hardware. This is an enormous animal, and it carries an enormous amount of venom, and it can pump a huge dose in a single bite. And the delivery system is genuinely staggering. The bushmaster has the longest fangs of any snake in the Americas, reaching up to around 3.5 centimeters. Those aren't just big teeth. They're long enough to drive venom deep past the surface, and there are documented cases of bushmaster fangs punching clean through thick leather boots. The thing that's supposed to protect a person's foot becomes almost beside the point. So the math of a bushmaster bite is brutal in a different way than the coral snakes. It's not a precision toxin. It's a massive load of tissue-destroying, blood-disrupting venom delivered deep by an animal large enough that there's a lot of it to give. The good news, if there is any, is the same fact that makes it a ghost. It lives where you almost certainly aren't. A jararaca might be in the grass behind a house. A bushmaster is somewhere out in the untouched dark, and getting bitten by one means you went looking in places very few people ever go. The name says it in the end. Muta, mut. A snake big enough to be heard from across a clearing that makes no sound to announce itself at all. Golden poison frog. The bushmaster is the largest. The next animal is the most toxic, and you could hide it under a bottle cap. This is the one from the very beginning. The little gold frog. It's time to actually meet it. The golden poison frog, the Phyllobates terribilis, is about 5 centimeters long. It's a clean, bright, uniform gold, and it sits out in the open in the daytime like it doesn't have a single enemy in the world. Which, in a way, it doesn't, because this small, calm, palm-sized amphibian is the single most toxic vertebrate on the entire planet. Not the most toxic frog. The most toxic animal with a backbone, full stop. Nothing else with a spine comes close. The numbers are almost hard to take seriously. A single wild golden poison frog carries enough toxin on its skin to kill around 10 grown adults. Stated another way, researchers have estimated the toxin in one frog at enough to kill on the order of 20,000 mice. And it has no fangs, no stinger, no claws, no way to inject any of it. It doesn't need one. The poison is right there on the skin, and the weapon is simply contact. This is an animal whose entire defense is, touch me and find out. The toxin is called batrachotoxin, and what it does is the opposite of what you might expect. Most of the lethal things on this list shut something down. They block a signal, paralyze a muscle, stop a process. Batrachotoxin does the reverse. It jams the body's nerve and muscle channels permanently open. The tiny sodium gates that are supposed to flicker on and off to control every heartbeat and every movement get locked in the on position and can't close. The result is that the muscles, including the heart, are driven into a state they can't recover from. The heart effectively seizes into a single locked contraction. There's no antidote. There's no antivenom. It's one of the reasons the frog's scientific name carries the word terribilis. Terrible, right in it. And now the twist, because the frog has a secret that completely changes the story. It does not make this poison itself. A golden poison frog raised in captivity, fed ordinary crickets and flies, grows up completely harmless. You could hold it in your bare hand all day. The toxin comes from its diet in the wild, a very specific menu of toxic ants and beetles found on the rainforest floor. The frog collects the chemistry from its prey, concentrates it, and moves it to its skin. Take away the rainforest, and you take away the weapon. The deadliest vertebrate on Earth is only deadly because of what it eats. Its whole arsenal is borrowed, one ant at a time, from the forest around it. Which raises an obvious question. How does the frog itself not die from carrying a poison that locks every muscle open? And the answer is genuinely one of the strangest things in the animal world. The frog has a tiny change built into its own body, a modification in those same sodium channels, so the toxin can't grip them properly. It's effectively immune to its own weapon. It walks around wearing a chemical so dangerous that it could kill the things hunting it many times over. And it's the one creature in the forest the poison can't touch. This is also a frog with a long human history, and it's not a gentle one. The toxin gets its dart frog name honestly. Certain indigenous groups in this region learned, generations ago, to wipe the tips of blowgun darts across the frog's back, arming each dart with a poison potent enough to drop a hunted animal. One frog could prepare a whole quiver of them. A weapon for taking food, drawn straight from the back of something small enough to sit on a coin. The bushmaster needs to be huge to be dangerous. This frog needs to be nothing at all. Cane toad. From the most toxic animal on the list to one that, frankly, just refuses to die. The next one isn't elegant. It's barely even trying. The cane toad, the Rhinella marina, is a big, lumpy, unhurried brown toad that looks like it was assembled out of spare parts and never finished. It doesn't run. It doesn't hide especially well. Its entire combat strategy is to sit there and let you make a mistake. And it has been so successful at this that humans accidentally turned it into one of the most notorious invasive animals on the planet, shipped to other countries to eat crop pests, where it promptly ignored the pests and started poisoning the local wildlife instead. The cane toad's whole deal is chemistry. Sitting on its back, just behind the eyes, are two bulging glands called the parotoid glands, and they're loaded with a cocktail known as bufotoxins. When something bites down on a cane toad, those glands release, and the poison goes to work on the heart and the nervous system of whatever's foolish enough to have it in its mouth. The effect on the heart is often compared to a massive overdose of a heart medication, the kind of overstimulation that can throw the rhythm into chaos and stop it. When it feels threatened, the toad even helps the process along, puffing its body up with air to look bigger and angling those glands toward the threat, basically presenting the loaded weapon. And the numbers are no joke, despite the comic appearance. A large dog that bites a big cane toad or a young caiman that swallows one can die of heart failure in a startlingly short time, in serious cases, within roughly 15 minutes of getting a full dose of the gland's poison. In the places where the cane toad was introduced and the local predators had never encountered anything like it, that's exactly what happened on a massive scale. Native animals ate the unfamiliar toad and died, and the food chain bent around it. Here's the part that earns the toad a strange kind of respect. It is itself almost impossible to poison. The cane toad eats more or less anything that fits in its very wide mouth. Insects, other frogs, small animals, and yes, including venomous snakes, which it can swallow and digest while shrugging off toxins that would drop most things its size. It's both heavily armored against being eaten and weirdly unbothered by eating things that should fight back. A poison that can stop a dog's heart in a quarter of an hour, riding around on an animal whose main talent is being too stubborn and too toxic to bother killing. The bushmaster hides in the deepest forest. The frog can't be touched, and the cane toad just sits there daring the entire food chain to take a bite, and mostly winning. Brazilian wandering spider. Most spiders want nothing to do with you. They sit in a web in a corner, they wait for a fly, and the moment anything large comes near, they're gone. The first spider on this list did not get the memo. When this one is cornered, it doesn't run. It rears up, leans back on its rear legs, lifts its front legs into the air like it's about to conduct an orchestra, and then it comes at you. This is the Brazilian wandering spider, the Phoneutria nigraventer, called the armadillo in Brazil. The name comes from that pose, armada, armed, ready. And the word wandering is the key to the whole problem. Most dangerous spiders are dangerous in one fixed place. You have to go to them. This one comes to you. It doesn't build a web to catch prey. At night it walks. It hunts on foot across the forest floor and up through buildings, actively prowling for insects and small prey, covering ground, going where the food is. And in places where people live near the forest, the food and the warmth and the dark hiding spots are often inside the house. So the armadillo ends up in the worst possible places from a human point of view. It tucks into wood piles, into the folds of clothes left on the floor, into shoes, into the corners of rooms. A huge share of bites happen exactly that way. Somebody puts on a boot, or pulls on a shirt, or reaches into a dark space, and the spider that was hiding there does what a cornered armadillo does. It's not hunting people. It just keeps ending up where people put their hands and feet, and it has absolutely no instinct to back down. Now the venom, because this is what moves the armadillo from aggressive spider to one of the genuinely most dangerous on the continent. Its venom is a neurotoxic mix, and the way it works is by attacking the body's nerve signaling at the source. It pries open the tiny sodium channels that nerves use to fire, and it won't let them settle. The nerves start firing out of control, a kind of electrical storm running through the nervous system. The result in a serious bite is a cascade of effects: intense pain, sweating, a racing or staggering heartbeat, muscles that cramp and lose control, and in the worst cases involving children or the frail, a real risk to breathing and heart function. One component, a toxin researchers label PHTX3, is a big part of that loss of muscle control. And then there's the effect that made this spider famous in a way no spider ever asked to be. In men, one of the most well-documented and frankly strange results of a serious armadillo bite is a prolonged, painful erection, a medical condition called priapism that has nothing to do with arousal and everything to do with the venom hijacking the body's blood flow signaling. It's painful, it can last for hours, and in severe cases, it can cause lasting damage. Here's the turn, though. Scientists looked at that bizarre side effect and saw an opportunity. The exact molecule in the venom responsible for it is now being studied as the basis for new treatments for erectile dysfunction. One of the most feared spiders in the Amazon may end up contributing to a medicine sold in pharmacies. The forest keeps doing this. hiding the cure inside the thing that hurts you. There's a final detail that shows this is not a mindless killer, but a careful one. Field research suggests the armadillo controls how much venom it spends. Producing venom is expensive, so the spider rations it, saving the full dose for prey it actually intends to eat, and often delivering defensive dry bites, or low-dose ones, to a threat it just wants to scare off, which means many bites to humans, who are not food, deliver less than the full payload. That's the good news. The bad news is that the spider rearing up in the corner is making a decision about exactly how much to give you, and it's the one holding the dial. Goliath bird eater. The armadillo is terrifying out of all proportion to its size. The next spider is just enormous, and its reputation is almost entirely a bluff. You sometimes hear it before you see it. That's the first thing to understand about the Goliath bird eater, the Theraphosa blondie, the largest spider on Earth by body mass. When it moves across dry leaves, the stiff bristles on its legs rasp against the ground and against each other, and it produces a sound, a faint, dry hiss called stridulation, loud enough to actually be heard. A spider big enough to announce its own arrival. It can reach up to around 30 centimeters across the legs, with fangs close to 2.5 centimeters long, big enough to drive through the skull of a mouse. By every measure of size, this is the spider from the nightmares, and the diet backs up the menace. The bird-eater name is not pure legend. The Goliath is fully capable of overpowering and eating small vertebrates, frogs, lizards, rodents, and yes, on occasion, young birds and snakes. This is a spider that flips the usual script, where spiders eat insects and bigger things eat spiders. The Goliath is big enough and strong enough to sit a few rungs higher than that. So here's the part that surprises people. And it's the whole twist of this entry. For all that size and all those fangs, its venom barely registers as a threat to a healthy human. A Goliath bite is real. Those fangs hurt, and they can absolutely break skin. But the venom itself is roughly in the league of a wasp's sting. Pain, swelling, some misery, and then it passes. If you rank these animals purely by how toxic their venom is to people, the biggest, scariest spider on the list would near the bottom. Its size is genuine. Its chemistry is mostly a bluff, which is exactly why the Goliath's real weapon is something else entirely, and it's a strange one. When it feels threatened, it doesn't lead with the fangs. It turns away from the threat and uses its back legs to rapidly flick a cloud of tiny hairs off its own abdomen. These are urticating hairs, and they're covered in microscopic barbs. They drift into the air as a fine, almost invisible cloud, and they're aimed at the eyes, the nose, the throat of whatever's bothering it. For a predator, getting a face full of those barbed hairs means burning, swelling, temporary blindness, and a respiratory tract that feels like it's full of fiberglass. The Goliath would rather make you choke on a cloud of itself than fight you directly. It's a remarkably effective way to win without ever making contact, and it senses the world in a way that makes the eyes almost an afterthought. High-speed footage of hunting Goliaths has shown that the spider can detect prey from the faint changes in air pressure that a moving animal pushes ahead of it, picked up by the sensory hairs on its legs. It can orient and strike at something it never visually saw, feeling the air get shoved around by an approaching meal. The biggest spider in the world hunts in part by touch on the wind. Brown spider, so the Goliath earns its place not through venom, but through everything around it, the size, the fangs, the cloud of barbs. The next spider is the reverse in every way. It's small, it's plain, and its venom is one of the most quietly destructive on this entire list. The bite you don't feel is the one that should worry you. The Amazonian brown spider, a loxosceles species adapted to the region, is small, drab, short-legged, and so unremarkable that you would never give it a second look. It doesn't rear up like the armadillo. It isn't huge like the Goliath. Its web isn't even a proper web, just a messy, irregular tangle that looks more like a patch of dust in a corner than the work of a predator. Everything about this spider says, ignore me. That's exactly the problem. The brown spider is not aggressive and has no interest in people. Almost every bite happens by pure accident when the spider gets trapped against skin, pressed inside a shirt being pulled on, a towel being used, a shoe being stepped into, bedding rolled against the body in the night. The spider, suddenly crushed, bites in self-defense. And here's the cruel part. That bite is often nearly painless. A small sting or nothing at all. Most people don't even realize they've been bitten. They go on with their day. The damage starts hours later. The venom carries an enzyme called sphingomyelinase D, and it does something genuinely insidious. It interacts with the membranes of skin cells and the cells lining the small blood vessels, and it sets off a runaway inflammatory chain reaction that ends up choking off the local blood supply. Without blood, the tissue starts to die. 24 hours or so after a bite the victim never felt, the skin around the site begins to darken, blister and break down, opening into a slow, spreading wound, a sunken ulcer of dead flesh that the body cannot easily repair. Doctors call it loxocelism, and in serious cases the necrotic wound can take months to heal, sometimes requiring surgical skin grafts just to close the hole the venom left behind. There's a regional wrinkle to the Amazon variety that makes it especially robust. Genetic studies suggest these rainforest brown spiders carry versions of the venom proteins that hold up better in constant heat and humidity than the versions found in their relatives further south. The killing proteins stay stable in conditions that would degrade other toxins, a quiet bit of engineering that keeps the weapon sharp in one of the most punishing climates on Earth. It's the perfect summary of a theme running through this whole list in the Amazon. Lethal and frightening are not the same thing. The brown spider is one of the most damaging animals here, and it looks like a speck of lint. Golden silk orb weaver. We've had aggression, size, and stealth. The last spider in this group is something else. A builder so good that humans have tried to copy its work for war. The golden silk orb weaver. The Trichonophylla clavipes doesn't really belong on a list of things that can hurt you. And that's exactly why it's worth ending on. Its venom isn't a danger to people. At most, a bite is a minor local affair. What earns it a place here is what it does to everything smaller than you, and the almost unreasonable quality of the trap it builds to do it. Start with the web, because it's genuinely one of the wonders of the rainforest. These spiders spin enormous orb webs, sometimes well over a meter across, and the silk has a warm golden color that actually shimmers in sunlight. That color isn't an accident. The gold appears to help the web work, drawing in flying insects, and the structure is strong enough to occasionally snag small birds that blunder into it. It's an aerial net, hung between trees, designed to take impacts from things moving at speed and hold them long enough for the spider to close in and deliver a fast, prey-specific venom that shuts the victim down. A lethal trap, just not for you. And the silk is where it stops being a nice fact and starts being almost hard to believe. Weight for weight, the dragline silk of these spiders is several times stronger than steel, and at the same time more elastic and tougher than Kevlar, the material in bulletproof vests. It is one of the highest performance materials known, and it's being produced, at room temperature, out of the back end of a spider hanging in a tree. The strength is real enough that people across the Amazon and other tropical regions have, over the years, twisted the silk of these spiders together into fishing lines strong enough to actually use. A thread spun to catch a fly, repurposed to catch a fish. The web has another trick that explains how it survives the brutal conditions of the rainforest. The golden silk carries chemical compounds, including substances that work as repellents against ants and fungi. So the web doesn't just hang there rotting and getting raided in the heat and damp. It actively resists the molds and the marching insects that would tear down anything else, which lets a single web stay up and working for weeks. The spider isn't just a weaver. It's running chemical maintenance on its own architecture. All of which is why this small, harmless to us spider has ended up in laboratories with serious funding behind them. Biotech and military researchers have spent years trying to sequence and reproduce that silk, chasing artificial tendons that could be implanted in human bodies, and ultralight, ultra-strong cables and cords, including the kind of material you'd want in something like a parachute line. They are trying essentially to steal the formula of an Amazonian predator and turn it towards saving human lives. The web that kills insects by the thousand might one day hold a person together. In a list full of animals built to end life, it's a fitting note to leave the spiders on. The deadliest engineer of the group is the one we most want to learn from. Giant centipede. There's a predator in the Amazon that hangs from the ceiling of a cave by its back legs, in total darkness, and snatches bats out of the air as they fly past. It doesn't have wings. It doesn't have eyes worth mentioning. It's a centipede. This is the Amazonian giant centipede, the Scolopendra gigantea, and it can grow past 30 centimeters long, longer than your forearm, a ribbon of armored segments with a leg on each side of every one. It moves fast, it hunts in the dark, and it goes after anything it can physically overpower, which turns out to be a startling range of animals. Lizards, frogs, mice, snakes, tarantulas, and in one of the most unsettling hunting behaviors ever filmed, bats. The centipede climbs the wall of a cave, anchors its rear legs to the rock or the ceiling, and lets the front 2/3 of its body hang free in the open air. Then it waits for a bat to fly through, grabs it out of mid-flight, and holds on while the venom does the rest. A ground animal that learned to fish the sky. And about that venom, the delivery system is one of the strangest in the animal world, because the centipede doesn't bite you with its mouth at all. The first pair of legs right behind its head have evolved into something else entirely. A pair of curved, hollow, claw-like fangs called forcipules. They're modified legs working as hypodermic needles. The centipede grabs prey with its body, drives those leg fangs in, and pumps venom directly through them. Imagine being injected by something's front feet. The venom itself contains a component researchers have nicknamed the spooky toxin, and the name fits the effect. It blocks a specific type of channel, the potassium channels, that mammals depend on to keep the heart beating and blood flowing properly. By jamming them, the toxin can choke off the flow of blood toward the heart and brain almost immediately. That's how an animal weighing a few grams can drop prey many times its own size. Some accounts put it at animals up to roughly 15 times larger than the centipede itself. It doesn't win by strength. It wins by switching off the victim's circulation faster than the victim can react. For a human, a bite from one of these is rarely deadly, but it is reportedly among the most intensely painful experiences the small animal world has to offer. Severe pain, swelling, fever, and a stretch of genuine misery. And there's a detail from the lab that's hard to shake. When the giant centipede catches something, it doesn't wait for it to die. The venom paralyzes and begins softening the prey's internal tissues, and the centipede starts to feed while the animal is still alive inside its grip. It doesn't kill first and eat second. For its prey, those two events overlap. A centipede that picks bats out of the air, injects venom through its feet, and starts eating before the meal is finished. We'll leave it there. Black scorpion. The next one comes from above too, but you won't see it hanging in a cave. You'll feel it land on your shoulder. In the dry parts of the world, scorpions are animals of sand and rock and desert nights. The black scorpion of the Amazon, the Tedius metuendis, threw all of that out. It's a creature of the wet forest. It lives under the bark of trees, in the crowns of palms, up in the damp tangle of the canopy, which sets up the specific miserable way people tend to encounter it. It falls onto people working under the trees, harvesting fruit, brushing against a trunk. A scorpion you never see until it's already on you, already stinging. It's behind some of the most severe scorpion sting cases in the north of Brazil. And a good part of that is simply how often it ends up in contact with people who are just trying to do their work. When it's knocked loose and feels threatened, it doesn't freeze. It's tough, it's quick to defend itself, and it can drive that stinger, the telson at the tip of its tail, into a target again and again in fractions of a second. And the venom is a complex blend of neurotoxins built around one overwhelming feature: pain. The sting produces pain so immediate and so severe that some victims go into shock from the pain itself before the deeper toxic effects have even fully set in. The body's alarm system gets pushed past what it can handle. But the deeper effects are the truly dangerous part, especially for the most vulnerable. In children and the elderly, a serious sting can trigger acute pulmonary edema, the lungs fill with fluid, and it can happen frighteningly fast, sometimes within a couple of hours of the sting. A small animal that fell out of a tree, capable of putting a child's life in danger before the afternoon is over. The scorpion senses its world through a pair of organs most people have never heard of. On the underside of its body are two comb-like structures called pectines, and in this species they're exceptionally well developed. They sweep just above the ground and the bark, reading chemical traces and the faintest mechanical vibrations, giving the scorpion a detailed picture of what's moving around it: prey, mates, and threats, including, potentially, the approach of a predator before it arrives. It's effectively feeling the texture of the world with a comb, and here again the forest hides medicine inside the weapon. Toxinology research on Titius metuendis has turned up unique antimicrobial peptides in its venom, molecules capable of destroying bacteria that have grown resistant to hospital antibiotics. The same venom that can flood a child's lungs may carry the key to fighting some of the infections that modern medicine is currently losing to. The killing machine is also possibly a pharmacy: bullet ant. The scorpion's sting is built around pain. The next animal is built around nothing but pain. It is, by the most widely used measure, the most painful sting on the planet. There's a man named Justin Schmidt who spent his career getting stung by things on purpose and ranking how much each one hurt. At the very top of his scale sits this one, and the way he and others have described it has become almost folklore, like being shot. Like walking over hot coals with a 3-inch rusty nail driven into your heel. 12 to 24 hours of pure, unrelenting, full-body pain. That's the bullet ant, the Paraponera clavata, and it earned its name honestly. People say the sting feels like taking a bullet. The ant itself is large, dark, and lives in colonies at the base of big rainforest trees. It is fiercely territorial, and it gives fair warning before it commits. A threatened bullet ant releases a sharp, high-pitched, stridulating sound, an audible alarm, before the colony pours out to defend the nest. Ignore the warning and you get the swarm. The pain comes from a peptide called ponerotoxin, and its mechanism is almost diabolically specific. It targets the sodium channels in your nerves and prevents them from switching off the way they're supposed to. Normally, a pain nerve fires a signal and then resets. Ponerotoxin won't let the reset happen. It holds the pain channels open, so the nerves just keep firing the pain signal to the brain over and over, with no off switch, for up to a full day. What makes this almost philosophically strange is that the sting causes very little actual damage. It doesn't rot the tissue, it doesn't usually threaten your life. It produces pure, enormous pain attached to almost no real injury. The body convinced it's being destroyed while remaining basically intact. In severe cases, the overload brings on trembling, cold sweats, a drop in blood pressure, even hallucinations, all driven by an alarm signal that simply won't stop. And humans, being humans, built a tradition around it. Among the Sateré-Moé people of the Amazon, there's a coming-of-age ritual in which dozens of bullet ants are woven, stingers facing inward, into a pair of gloves made of leaves. A young man who wants to be recognized as a warrior puts his hands inside and has to endure the stings, and not just once. The ritual is repeated many times over the years. It is, by any measure, one of the most demanding tests of endurance any culture has ever devised, built entirely around the worst pain an insect can produce. Here's the twist worth ending on, though. That same ponerotoxin, the molecule behind the worst sting on Earth, is being studied as the basis for a new kind of painkiller, potentially a powerful, non-addictive one. Used in tiny, purified doses, the thing that causes unbearable pain might learn to switch pain off instead. The animal that defines agony could end up easing it. Nature apparently has a sense of irony. Assassin caterpillar, we've had pain that doesn't damage. The last animal in this group is the reverse. It barely hurts at first, and it can kill you by making your blood forget how to stop bleeding. It looks like a smear of moss on the bark of a tree. That's the whole trick. The assassin caterpillar, the Lenomia obliqua, is the larval stage of a moth, and on its own, a single one is a soft, unremarkable, slightly spiny caterpillar. The danger is that they almost never travel alone. They gather in dense groups on tree trunks, pressed flank to flank, their colors and textures blending so perfectly into the bark that the whole cluster reads as just part of the tree. And the accidents happen in the most ordinary way imaginable. A person leans a hand, a forearm, a back against a tree trunk to rest, and presses into a colony of them without ever seeing it. The grouping isn't random, it's tactical. By packing together, the caterpillars turn dozens of individual sets of spines into one continuous field of them. So a single press of skin doesn't deliver one sting. It delivers hundreds all at once, across the whole contact area. Their spines are branched, delicate, hollow structures, shaped a little like tiny pine trees, and at the lightest touch, the tips snap off and inject what's inside. And what's inside is the part that puts a caterpillar on a list next to vipers. The venom contains powerful anticoagulants, substances that attack the body's blood clotting system directly and dismantle it. After a serious contact, the victim's blood progressively loses its ability to clot at all. That sets up a severe bleeding syndrome. The body can start hemorrhaging internally into the organs, and in the worst cases, it can lead to bleeding in the brain and death. A creature you could crush between two fingers, capable of a kind of internal bleeding that rivals a snakebite. Now the part that makes the whole thing almost absurd. This caterpillar is only dangerous in this one stage of its life. When it completes its transformation into the adult moth, it loses the venom entirely. The adult has no functional mouth, it can't even eat. It exists for only a few days, with one purpose, which is to reproduce, and then it's gone. So the same animal is, briefly, one of the most medically dangerous creatures in the forest, and then becomes a harmless, short-lived moth that starves to death by design. The weapon exists only in the in-between, and there's a genuinely triumphant footnote to this one. The threat was serious enough, particularly in parts of Brazil, that the Butantan Institute developed the world's only anti-venom specifically for Lenomia, produced, as these things often are, from the very venom scraped off the caterpillar's own spines. Out of an animal that looks like a patch of bark and bleeds people from the inside, Brazilian science built the cure. The forest writes the problem. Sometimes people manage to write the answer. Tarantula hawk. We just spent a whole section on spiders. The wandering spider that comes at you. The Goliath the size of a dinner plate. Now meet the animal that hunts them. There is a creature in the Amazon whose entire life is built around finding the biggest, most dangerous spiders in the forest and taking them apart. And the spiders are right to be afraid of it. This is the tarantula hawk, a wasp of the genus Pepses, including the giants like Pepsi's heroes. One of the largest wasps on Earth. The name is literal. It hunts tarantulas. A female tarantula hawk goes looking for a spider many times her own weight, often tracking it right down into its burrow, and then she does something that sounds like it shouldn't be possible. She goes in after it, down into the spider's own home, into the dark, against an animal armed with fangs that could kill her. and she picks a fight, she almost always wins. The fight isn't really about killing, though, which is what makes it so unsettling. The wasp's goal is to land a single, precise sting into a nerve center on the spider's underside, and her stinger can be enormous. Up to around 7 millimeters, a needle long enough to reach exactly where she's aiming. That sting doesn't kill the spider. It paralyzes it permanently. The venom shuts down the spider's motor system while leaving it alive. Fully, helplessly alive. The tarantula, one of the most formidable predators on the forest floor, is reduced in seconds to a living statue that cannot move a single leg. And here's the reason for all of it. The part that recontextualizes everything. The adult tarantula hawk doesn't even eat meat. It lives on nectar and the juice of tropical fruit. All that aggression, that fearlessness, that surgical venom, none of it is for her. It's for her child. After paralyzing the spider, she drags its living body to a burrow, lays a single egg on it, and seals it in. When the larva hatches, it has a fresh, living, paralyzed spider to eat. Meat that can't run and can't rot because it isn't dead. It gets worse in a slow and deliberate way. The larva, feeding on the paralyzed spider from the inside, eats in a specific order. It consumes the non-vital parts first. The fat, the muscle, the tissue the spider doesn't strictly need to stay alive. And it saves the vital organs, the heart, for last. The effect is that the spider stays alive as long as possible, kept fresh from the inside, while it's slowly eaten. The wasp isn't being cruel. She's being efficient. But the result is one of the grimmer arrangements in the natural world. As for what the tarantula hawk's sting does to a human, it almost never causes real harm, and it's almost never dangerous. It's just by reputation one of the most purely painful stings on the planet, ranked right up near the bullet ant. The standing advice from people who study these things is famous and only half a joke. If a tarantula hawk stings you, don't try to run or function. Just lie down and scream, and wait, because for a few minutes you're not going to be in control of much. Sound advice for an insect whose day job is paralyzing tarantulas. Warrior wasp. That was one wasp, hunting alone. The next one comes by the hundreds, and it announces itself with a drum. There's a sound in the Amazon that experienced guides treat as a hard stop, a signal to back away slowly and not argue. It's a rhythmic, pulsing drumming, and it comes from a nest. The warrior wasp, the Synoeca septentrionalis, builds colonies, and when the colony feels threatened, the wasps do something coordinated and genuinely chilling. They beat their bodies and scrape their mandibles against the walls of their papery nest in unison, producing a rhythmic sound like a tribal drum rolling through the trees. It's a warning, delivered by the whole colony at once. It means the next thing that happens is the swarm. Whoever's hearing that drum is being given one last chance to leave. Most things that hear it leave. The ones that don't learn why the warning exists. When a warrior wasp colony commits to an attack, it is relentless in a way that's hard to overstate. They come out as a mass, and they will pursue an intruder for a remarkable distance, hundreds of meters through dense forest, around and over obstacles, not giving up the way most stinging insects do once you've put a little ground between you. There's no outrunning the warning if you waited too long to heed it. The sting itself is built for maximum suffering. The venom is rich in enzymes, hyaluronidase and phospholipase, that break down the membranes of skin cells. And the sensation people describe isn't a sharp prick so much as a deep, spreading burn, like hot oil injected under the skin. One sting is agony. The problem is that you almost never get just one. And here the numbers turn genuinely dangerous. A person hit by enough simultaneous stings can suffer acute kidney failure, as the toxins and the body's own breakdown of damaged muscle flood the bloodstream with material the kidneys can't clear fast enough. A swarm of these isn't just pain. It's a systemic medical emergency. The nest they're defending so violently is, ironically, a thing of real beauty. Warrior wasps build a covered nest with a distinctive ridged, overlapping texture that looks remarkably like the armored shell on the back of an armadillo. So much so that it's locally known by exactly that comparison. It's a small architectural marvel hanging in the forest. It is also one of the worst possible things to touch. And the contrast is the whole lesson. The most beautiful object on the branch is the one wired to 100 alarms. And, as the forest keeps insisting, even this carries something useful. Researchers have found that the venom of Sinoica contains a peptide called mastapiron, which has shown the ability to trigger programmed cell death in tumor cells, opening real lines of research into treatments, including for prostate cancer. The drumming swarm that can shut down a person's kidneys is also being mined, molecule by molecule, for ways to kill cancer. Assassin bug. The warrior wasp overwhelms with numbers. The next hunter works alone in silence, and what it does to its prey is the stuff of quiet nightmares. It sits on a leaf and waits, looking like a fragment of dead plant, and that camouflage is the last thing a lot of insects ever misread. This is the assassin bug, Aerolis carinatus, an armored, angular insect with a prehistoric look and a single, terrible tool. A rigid beak-like mouthpart called a rostrum, folded under its head like a switchblade. It hunts by ambush, grabbing prey with strong, spined front legs and then driving that rostrum into the victim's body like a stake punched through armor, straight through the tough exoskeleton of another insect, or into the skin of something larger. But the puncture is just the doorway. The real weapon is what the assassin bug pumps through it. Its saliva is loaded with a brutal mix of enzymes and neurotoxins, and it does two jobs at once. First, it paralyzes. The prey's nervous system shuts down almost instantly, so the struggle ends fast. Then the enzymes go to work, and this is the part that earns the bug its reputation. They begin dissolving the prey's internal tissues into a liquid, turning the inside of the still intact body into a kind of nutritious soup. The assassin bug doesn't tear its food apart. It liquefies the insides and drinks them out through the same puncture it made, leaving an empty shell behind. The speed is hard to believe. It can reduce the insides of a large caterpillar to liquid in under a minute. There's a clever, almost tactical wrinkle to its chemistry. Field analysis suggests the assassin bug can deliver different kinds of saliva depending on the situation. One blend tuned purely for defense, built to cause immediate, intense pain in a predator that's bothering it, and another tuned for hunting, the paralyzing and digesting cocktail it saves for prey. It chooses its chemical weapon based on whether it's eating or being threatened, and that defensive blend is exactly what a person feels if they handle one carelessly. The assassin bug isn't out to hurt people. In fact, it's a valuable ally in the forest, quietly killing off pest insects in huge numbers. But its defensive jab into a human is widely described as far more painful than the sting of any wasp or bee. A beneficial insect, on balance. Just don't pick one up to thank it. Green link spider. We end this group back where we started it, with a spider. But not a web builder. A hunter that runs its prey down, jumps like a cat, and spits venom at anything that gets too close to its eggs. The green link spider. Pusitia viridans and its Amazonian relatives is a small, vivid, lime green spider that looks like it was carved out of translucent glass and decorated with black dots and long, spiky bristles on its legs. It is genuinely beautiful, and it is one of the most efficient killers of pollinators in the low plants and flowers of the forest, ambushing the bees and butterflies that come to feed. It earns the lynx name by the way it hunts. It doesn't sit in a web waiting. It stalks across leaves and flowers with a fast, fluid, feline agility, and when it spots prey, it pounces, leaping distances that can reach many times its own body length to bring down a moving target. The legs that look so delicate are actually a trap. They're lined with those long, stiff bristles, and when the spider lands on a victim, the legs fold inward and the bristles interlock into a kind of living cage around the prey. pinning the insect in place and cutting off any escape while the spider delivers the killing bite. It's not just grabbing its food, it's enclosing it. But the lynx spider's most remarkable trick is defensive, and it's rare among spiders. It can spit venom. When a threat gets too close, particularly to a female guarding her egg sac, she can eject venom from her fangs out into the air, aimed at the intruder, and she aims for the eyes. And there's an observation from the field that makes this even more impressive. These spiders appear to check the wind before they fire, accounting for the air currents so the spray of venom actually reaches the target instead of drifting off course. A spider performing a basic ballistics calculation before it shoots. So the prettiest predator in this whole section, a green glass jewel sitting on a flower, turns out to be a stalking, leaping, cage-building, wind-reading killer that spits poison at your eyes when it's defending its young. Beautiful and not remotely gentle, which is more or less the rule for everything in this forest. The closer you look, the less harmless anything turns out to be. Green anaconda. Everything on this list so far has killed with chemistry, venom, poison, toxins refined over millions of years. The biggest killer in the water doesn't bother with any of that. It doesn't have a drop of venom. It doesn't need one. It just wraps around you and stops your heart with its body. This is the green anaconda, the Eunectes marinus, the heaviest snake on the planet and one of the longest. A big female, and the females dwarf the males in this species, can stretch beyond 5 meters and weigh as much as a grown person, sometimes considerably more. It's a thick, slow, muscular animal that spends most of its life in the water, in the slow rivers and flooded grasslands of the Amazon, because on land its own weight works against it, but in the water it becomes something close to weightless and astonishingly capable. Its eyes and nostrils sit right on top of its head, so it can lie almost completely submerged, invisible, breathing and watching, with nothing showing above the surface. It's an ambush hunter and it isn't picky. Capybara, deer, large birds, turtles, and, in a detail that says everything about where it sits in the food chain, caiman. The anaconda is one of the few animals in the Amazon that will take on a crocodilian and win. It waits, it strikes, it gets a grip with its backward curving teeth, and then it throws its coils around the prey and begins to squeeze. And here's where modern research overturned a story almost everyone grew up believing. For generations, the assumption was that a constrictor kills by suffocation, that it crushes the lungs and the victim slowly can't breathe. That turns out to be mostly wrong, and the truth is faster and stranger. What the squeezing actually does is shut down circulation. The pressure is so immense and so precisely applied that it stops blood from flowing. It spikes the internal pressure, cuts off the supply to the heart and brain, and the animal loses consciousness in seconds, dying of cardiac arrest far more quickly than suffocation could ever manage. The anaconda isn't slowly smothering its prey. It's switching off the blood supply like closing a valve, and it monitors the prey's own heartbeat through its coils, easing off only when it feels the heart stop. No fangs delivering poison. No glands, no toxins, just a tube of muscle that has turned the simple act of holding on into one of the most efficient killing methods in the rainforest. In a video full of elaborate chemical weapons, the largest predator in the water is also the most basic. It is, in the most literal sense, deadly by design. Kangaroo. The anaconda is the giant everyone fears. The next animal in the water is tiny, and somehow even more famous. Mostly for something it probably never actually does. If you've heard one terrifying story about the Amazon, there's a good chance it was this one. The kangaroo, Vandalia serosa, is a small, thin, almost transparent catfish, and it has a reputation out of all proportion to its size. The infamous little fish that supposedly swims up into the human body. That legend has traveled the world. So let's be honest about what's real and what isn't, because the truth is interesting enough on its own. What the kangaroo genuinely does is parasitic and clever. It's a blood feeder. It hunts by detecting the chemical traces in the water that larger fish give off, follows them to the source, and slips into the gill chambers of its host, the soft, blood-rich tissue under the gill covers. Once inside, it erects a set of short, backward-pointing spines that lock it in place so it can't be easily dislodged, and it feeds on the host's blood before slipping back out. It's essentially a swimming needle that has learned to find the one unarmored entrance on a much bigger fish. As for the legend, the famous claim that the candiru is drawn to humans and will invade the body, the honest answer is that it's almost certainly overblown. The idea that it homes in on a stream of urine has been tested and largely doesn't hold up. The fish appears to track its hosts by other chemical cues. Documented cases of it actually harming a person are extraordinarily rare, and in the most cited example, disputed by researchers to this day. So the candiru's true danger to humans sits much closer to vanishingly unlikely than to the horror story. What makes it worth knowing isn't that it's a threat to you. It's that one of the most feared animals in the entire Amazon is a finger-length fish that mostly just wants the blood of other fish, and earned a global reputation almost entirely by rumor: electric eel. The candiru's menace is mostly myth. The last animal in this video is the opposite. Its reputation doesn't come close to capturing what it can actually do. It lives in some of the worst water in the Amazon. Murky, still starved of oxygen, the kind of dark, low-visibility shallows where most predators would struggle to find anything at all. And it dominates that water completely because it doesn't really need to see. The electric eel, Electrophorus, including the recently described Electrophorus volti, is not actually an eel. It's a long, air-breathing fish that has turned its own body into a battery. Start with how it navigates a world it can barely see. The electric eel has poor eyesight and almost no scales, and instead of relying on vision, it generates a constant, weak electric field around itself and reads the distortions in that field as objects move through it. It effectively sees with electricity, mapping the muddy water, finding prey, sensing obstacles, all through a sense most animals don't even have a word for. The same system it uses to perceive the world is the foundation of the system it uses to kill. Because the eel has a second mode, and it's the one that earns its place at the end of this list. Roughly 80% of its body is given over to 3 specialized electric organs: the main organ, the hunter's organ, and the sacs organ, and they're packed with thousands of cells called electrocytes, stacked and wired together exactly like batteries in series. Each one generates only a small voltage, but line up thousands of them and fire them all at the same instant, and the eel can unleash a discharge that paralyzes entire schools of small fish in the water around it, or drops a much larger animal in its tracks. People have long reported eels capable of knocking down a horse that wandered into a stream, and the newly described Electrophorus volti set the record for all of them, a measured discharge of up to 860 volts, the strongest electric shock produced by any living animal on Earth. For most of scientific history, the electric eel was thought to be a solitary, almost antisocial animal, each one hunting alone in its patch of dark water. Then researchers documented something nobody expected, and it's where we'll leave this. In a remote part of the Amazon, electric eels were seen gathering and hunting together, in groups, driving shoals of small fish into the shallows and shocking them in coordinated bursts. A pack hunting strategy almost no one believed these animals were capable of, and there's an older account that turns out to fit. 200 years ago, the explorer Alexander von Humboldt described electric eels in a pond launching themselves out of the water to press their bodies against the legs of horses, and for a long time it was treated as a tall tale. Recent work has shown it's real. When threatened, an electric eel can leap up out of the water and press itself directly against a larger animal, climbing partway up the body so that the electricity pours straight in instead of dispersing into the river. It doesn't wait in the water and hope. It comes up out of the dark, lays itself against the target, and delivers the full 860 volts straight into the body. Aimed, deliberate, and rising out of the water to reach the heart.